What is up, my fellow members of the CLC Venom? So for years, I felt like this is a terrible idea. When you try to make a film about a villain that revolves around a character that is inherently unlikable, that is really, really difficult to do. Now, there are examples in which it works. It's probably the number one example that I can think of is American Psycho, which is one of my top 5-10 favorite movies of all time. An example of a movie where they've tried to make the villain or villains the heroes, and it didn't work, was Suicide Squad. And that movie was marketed as it's a team of supervillains, and they even say in the movie a million times, these are the bad guys. Ooh, look out, they're the bad guys, the worst of the worst. And yet, they always at some point in the movie say, you know what, we have to make these characters likable. They can't be evil the whole film. That would require good writing and strong character development. And they always say, oh, they're misunderstood. Don't you understand? Aren't you going to root for them now? And that always pisses me off, especially when they market these movies as it's the world has enough superheroes. It's time for the villains to have their day. No, not really. It's just a movie about villains who become heroes at the end. And that's why I always felt like a Venom movie would never work, because they would cop out, and you would go from one of the biggest supervillains in comic book lore to a anti-hero in his own film. Is that what happened here? Well, I'll get to that in a second. I will say this. The first half of this movie, I was with it. I was liking it. I wasn't adoring it. It wasn't breaking new ground, but it was good. Tom Hardy is excellent as Eddie Brock. I thought the film did a really great job of telling his story in the first few minutes of a guy who kind of, had a good life, and then he, through his own hubris and arrogance and need for the truth, kind of let it all fall apart. And I thought Riz Ahmed was really good as the villain. Yeah, he was cliche, but he was having fun with the role. He was very believable. I was with it. And then they pulled exactly what I thought they would pull, and that is they tried to make Venom into a likable anti-hero, and it just doesn't work. The character itself of Venom is pretty annoying. He starts out at first, you're like, okay, maybe there's something there, but then he's like giving Tom Hardy advice, and it's annoying. Eddie, you're a pussy. You're a loser, Eddie. Tonally, it completely doesn't work, because it goes from something that seemed like it was kind of a horror thriller to just your straight up light comedy comic book movie, like on a dime. And I think reshoots probably had a lot to do with that, but also the movie doesn't have a second act. It doesn't have a middle act. You go from he gets his symbiote and he's freaking out, and then all of a sudden, basically like on a dime, he's like developed a relationship with this thing, and they're like buddy. We need to save the planet, Eddie. Me and you, we're in this together. It's very off-putting, and I think it's a big reason why this movie is getting ripped by critics, is that all of a sudden the character development feels phony, it's stilted, the dialogue is really bad. There's not one moment of genuine comedy that I laughed at in this film, and then it just kind of ends. The movie just kind of ends, and it's disappointing because they had something here. I really think there's a good movie in here somewhere. I think the problem in tone has a lot to do with the fact that the movie was unsure of what it wanted to be. It probably didn't test well with audiences, and so they went back and reshot scenes to make the movie more funny. When it goes from horror to comedy, it's not seamless at all. It's completely clunky, and that's probably my guess as to why this movie, which was originally promised to be rated R, wasn't rated R. They probably were afraid of how audiences would react. They probably felt like, we can't make this a straight-up horror thriller. We need to interject some comedy and make it lighter, so the scenes in which people are getting their heads bitten off, there's no blood, I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. Probably trending downward. I feel like the more I think about it, the less I'll like it. I don't think it is nearly as bad as some people are making it out to be. Some people are comparing this to like Batman and Robin and Elektra and Ang Lee's Hulk. It's not that bad. You can follow me on Twitter. That's at Castellani 2014. That is at CASTELLANI NI2014. Thank you for watching. Please click that subscribe button. Peace and happiness. Never stop losing.